of Inspirational You, who have put on today's workshop. I'd like to thank you all for coming along. Can you hear me? Because I've got a bit of a quiet voice. Yes. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce you to our panel today. Jasmine Dotiwala, sorry, forgive me. Robin Elias, Ivor Etienne, Anthea Lee. We have Dumi, you'll have to pronounce your surname.
It's Dumi Aburota.
And Steve Sutherland. And the purpose of today's workshop is that we want you to understand the music, business and entertainment industry. Inspirational You was formed in March of last year, and we formed because we wanted to look at ways in which we could educate, empower and connect you with professionals and professionals with you. I know a lot of people who are running businesses or who want to get their ideas off the ground, but they may not necessarily know how to do so, or they may not have the connection or the networks to do so, or there are lots of you who are very talented and would perhaps like to speak with a lot of the people who are on the panel, but that doesn't always happen. So what we try and do is to bring the panel to you. So I ask that you use tonight wisely, and I ask that the questions that you have are relevant in terms of what tonight's topic is about. They're not here if you're a music artist to take your mixtape. They're not here to take your show reels. They're here to give you practical advice and tips and to help to steer you in terms of where you want to take your future. We will commence with a brief introduction by everybody that is on the panel. They'll tell you a little bit about themselves in terms of their background, where they've come from, how they've got into the businesses or the professions that they are in, and then they will give you sort of 3 tips for success in terms of what has helped them and what has steered their career. We will then go into a Q&A. Dumi has to leave slightly earlier. And can we just say happy birthday in advance to Dumi?
Oh,
is it your birthday? So yeah, he's got to go because he's having his birthday dinner. So I really thank you for sharing the evening with us, because I appreciate how busy you are. So again, in terms of the Q&A, if we start the Q&A perhaps with a few questions for Dumi, so that he can then nip out this evening. Our Q&A will then last around 45 minutes, and then after our Q&A we'll have about 20 minutes or so of networking. Those of you who've been to past events know that our events have run over, but this is our first time at Pearson's and we want to come back. So at our last event we were outside. Where's Darren Dixon? Where is he? Embarrassing. He's here.
Stand out there, he doesn't.
Okay. So with Darren and the others that we had on the panel, we were outside till 10:20, which was an hour and 20 minutes after, and that was just on the basis that everybody that was there was just so infused and there was just so much banter going on. But we want to come back, so we wrap up and we need to be at the door by 9 o'clock. So we will start to depart by about 10 to 9. Hello, Darren. We are on Twitter, so I would appreciate your comments throughout the night if you can and if you do tweet. So our Twitter name is inspirational_you. So if you tweet throughout the night, that sort of helps us in terms of following you and you following us, but us also being able to follow the feedback that's been given, and any information that has been given out by all the panelists, you can use that to tweet as well. Because as you can see, we are at capacity, and I'm guessing downstairs isn't that much different now, because we have had a lot of people inquiring about coming along today. So yeah, you just have to share it via Twitter for them, unfortunately. I think that's sort of it in terms of us. I'm not sure in terms of housekeeping. If there's a fire alarm, don't look at me. Okay.
We'll be fine.
Okay. I guess don't look at Abu. But, I'd like to just introduce Abu, if that's okay. And I'd like to thank him for allowing us to be here today.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Abu is very supportive of organisations like ourselves, and he is really instrumental in terms of running the diversity programme that they put on here at Pearson. It is one of the most successful, and a lot of the graduates that come onto the programme go on and are doing really fantastic work. And I was honoured to be here earlier this year, thank you, to speak to the graduates, and I was really blown away by what they were doing and what they were achieving. And so I'm really pleased that we're able to be here tonight as well, so that we can also continue that learning process. Just to sort of finish up in terms of who we are and why we set up, we are a voluntary organisation. We are not funded by anybody. We are not running because we are here to focus on making a profit. All of us that are involved, which is myself, Andrew, give us a wave, Isaac and Nicola, and Nicola who's not here today, we all work on a voluntary capacity, and we have been doing so for under 2 years because we understand and know the importance of being able to educate and empower. We all learn in different ways, and one of the most successful ways that we have found is by having informal settings like this. And everybody that's here today share that ethos, and so we're really humbled and thankful that you are all here today. They're not all public speakers, they're not here because they're getting paid, they're here because they want to share, and I guess because I've harassed them. But, you know, we're just glad to have them here. So if I kick off with Jasmine. Jasmine will be our host this evening. Can you give Jasmine a round of applause, please? Jasmine, again, if any of you know, well, you should know about Jasmine, because Jasmine is our ultimate socialite here. She's achieved so much, she's so hardworking, and again, Jasmine has been behind us as well in terms of supporting what we do and speaking on our panels, and she's literally stepped in this afternoon, and I'm so thankful for her for doing that, because I'm not really this kind of public speaking, but she's come and she's agreed to host this evening, and it means a lot because Jasmine embodies what we are about, which is about empowering women, putting women out there on a platform, and women looking at other ways in which they can generate an income for themselves, because we're very much about multiple streams of income. So whether you're learning, whether you're earning, whether you're saving, Jasmine represents that, and she does so much, and she always still makes time to give back, so we're really honoured that she has been able to fit us in this evening. So I won't keep going on, I'll hand over to Jasmine, who will then introduce our panel. So our panel will just begin with just a sort of brief intro. And, I hope you all enjoy this evening. Have your pens ready. As I said, do tweet. If you all want to give your Twitter names as well, if you're on Twitter, that's helpful so they can follow you as well. And they all use social media as we do, which is how I think many of you may have heard about this evening. So you can also keep in contact with them that way if you're unable to meet with them in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Just to let you know, this microphone doesn't actually work for you guys. It's for that camera over there, but my mouth is pretty big, so you should all be able to hear me. All right? Thank you all for coming this evening. I've actually done a few workshops and seminars with Sonia. They're all very, very different. Some are intimate like this, which is actually really nice. Some of them are huge and have hundreds and hundreds of young people there, and it makes me feel really positive because it really makes me believe and let me be reassured that there are so many young people out there still waiting to get into an industry that I'm trying to recruit into. So please, you know, see yourselves as very positive for attending this evening. My background in a nutshell is after university I was a runner at The Big Breakfast, which was a breakfast show on Channel 4 which Chris Evans and Gabby Roslin hosted. The same company, Planet 24, then went on to make The Word, which was a youth culture show in the 90s. It was big, it was controversial and outrageous. I was the last presenter on The Word, and I presented that for 2 years with Danny Bear and Terry Christian. From there I went on to presenting MTV News International and MTV News UK, and stayed at MTV for 13 years as a producer and a director, making cribs, diaries with bands, and I ended up my last 4 years there as heading up MTV Base Production. And since then I've gone back to Channel 4 to do some T4 stuff. I've gone back to ITV to set up One Night Stand, which is a music strand, and I'm now currently back at the BBC and the Media Trust working on London 360, which is a new show that London's 120 young reporters every year make. It's a weekly magazine show, I can tell you more about that later. And BBC Music with Mark Cooper, who is a champ for BBC TV and music. So it's really exciting for me to be here and know that you guys can still be involved in that. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves just going down the line. So starting with Robin.
Okay, Robin Elias, I work for ITN. I'm managing editor of ITV News. I've worked there for 30 years, which is probably longer than most of you have been alive. I think I'm the only person here in a tie. I'm so sorry. Bit of moral support. Okay. Any more?
As much as you want to give.
Okay, well, if I give my spiel then. It's interesting that Sonia introduced us as experts in the entertainment and music industry. I know nothing about either. I do know about news, and that's where I've worked for nearly 40 years now. I was asked at an event at lunchtime, how did you get into news? Because I said you need to be special, you need to really impress on people what extra you have got to give. And some bright spark in the audience said, well, what did you have when you started out? And to be blunt, I had bugger all going for me. I didn't go to university, so I went straight from school. I went to a careers officer and did one of these, there's a name for it, but one of these tests which says, would you prefer to run down an old lady in a fast car or look after handicapped children? And I answered the question, and they said, you're made to be a social worker. I thought, that's okay. But I didn't really fancy it. But number two was a reporter, be a journalist, because I know I can write, I liked English, I was interested in people. And I suppose I had a social conscience. So I applied to local newspapers straight from school, and there's two in our town, our sleepy town. I failed on the first interview but got the second one. So I really fell into journalism, which for people, and I'm sure a lot of you here, well qualified, motivated and passionate about the industry, who might find it difficult to make a start, you'll think how incredibly lucky I was, and I was very lucky. And now you do need a lot more. It's a very competitive industry. I'm talking about news, not media in general. So what do I look for? Part of my job now is recruitment. And I look for just that, something that tells me someone has a real passion for the job. You need to have an education. You don't necessarily need a degree. But what do I look for in on a CV? And I suppose the bit of advice I would give is to qualify, to imbue yourself in knowledge about television news. The great thing about news is it's accessible to everybody. You don't have to be a genius to work out. If you've got an hour free in the evening, watch the BBC at 6 o'clock for half an hour, then watch ITV News at 6:30 for half an hour, and then write a few paragraphs about what the difference is. And some people might say, well, actually there's not much difference. But when you've been in the business a long time, you'll see quite a bit of difference. Some of it quite subtle, some of it in presentation, some of it in news selection, agenda and style, writing style. But get into that much detail and find out whether that is of an interest to you, whether how we choose different stories to report and the way we report them, those differences interest you, then perhaps you can develop this passion for television news. One thing that all journalists need, and I was a local newspaper reporter, but since then my background at ITN is programme editing. I was programme editor of News at 10 for many years. Everybody needs to be able to write. It's interesting, Sonia mentioned tweeting tonight. What a brilliant way to test out whether you can write or not. It teaches you how to write concisely, how to not waste words, how to be accessible, so writing for a particular audience, and lots of different ways. Or write a blog, work for local hospital radio, just find something that you can put on your CV which will say, I'm more than just interested, I have a real passion for it. So I suppose in a nutshell, those are my tips, but I hope there'll be some questions later I can expand on some of that.
Thank you.
Oh, good evening. My name is Ivor Etienne, and I'm a media analyst and international media consultant. When I started off my career, I didn't really want to be in radio. I actually wanted to work in British Aerospace and build missiles, which how I got to work in radio is a kind of weird, long journey. my school was a quite interesting school. It's probably one of the worst schools in West London. And I suppose if it wasn't for a teacher who saw or promising me to keep going and not go with a certain crowd, I probably wouldn't be here now. Because when it comes to those moments of, you should be doing your O-levels, you should be looking to do A-level maths or A-levels English or whatever, it could have been quite easy for that person to just say, I'm not going to be interested in this guy, let him just go off and do what he's got to do. But he saw that I had the potential, and I thank him for that. And because of that, it was then a case of me then going on and doing my A-levels and then going to Hammersmith and West London College and kind of hanging out there and, getting a couple of, qualifications there. But I still wanted to work, for British Aerospace. I had this thing about working in space. And 2 years into a 3-year course, it was probably another changing moment in my life. I went to a place called Weekends Art College. And there I learned about music, I learned about dance, drama and everything else. And I knew then I didn't want to build missiles anymore. I wanted to get involved in music in some sort. But I was never good as some of the guys who could play piano, who could be on the bass or whatever. So I kind of drove myself into becoming a sound engineer. They had the desk there. They had people who kind of knew what was gonna, how it worked. So I kind of plunged myself into that studio, learning everything about that studio, learning how to make various mixes, getting various groups, individuals to come in and do loads and loads of songs and things. And then I kind of learned from then. For 3 or 4 years, I worked at a community centre called Interchange. And there I did various events with various people, recorded loads of demos with jazz artists. So I got to learn how to put the mics in various places, talking about people doing double tracking and when you want to do mixing and all that kind of. So I went through all that process. And working within that community setting, I knew then I had to get taken to the next level, because I knew that, you could only go so far. And I applied to the BBC to be a studio manager. Now, for me to work at the BBC as a studio manager, they were taking fairly younger recruits. So I got in third time lucky, so to speak, and joined the course and went through the vigorous training of the Beeb. And I put my hand up to the Beeb. They really take you through all the things of doing a studio manager, and went to BBC Wood Norton in Birmingham, learned my trade up there, and after about just under a year, came back and then learnt the trades in different disciplines. So I worked at Radio 1, Radio 2, I worked in the control room, and also BBC continuity as well. So I got to learn all the strands of making programs, how programs worked, working with producers, etc., etc. I stuck there for quite a while, learning on Radio 4. I didn't learn at 5 Live. I went to the World Service and did stuff there, editing programs and stuff, and then eventually went for a job at Radio 1, and I was fortunate to get it, and I became the first black producer at Radio 1, bringing music to the station. It was kind of going through that kind of smashing nicely stage, so people were kind of going through that era of Steve Wright and Simon Bates. So you're bringing a new flavour now that they probably haven't experienced before, but you're bringing them new ideas. I could do most of the things that some of the producers couldn't do at the time, which was edit, mix and do various things. So they then took on some of the ideas of whether you could self-produce or whether you could then have a producer do more than one show. So at Radio 1 I brought together the Steve Edwards Soul Show, which brought in New Jack Swing and various other artists like R. Kelly and Mary J. Blige, and somebody called Bilge at one point, and also brought them One in the Jungle, which they then turned into a CD compilation. But at the time they wasn't sure about touching various strands, but it was then a case of forcing that through, bringing the talent through all the time. And also a couple of mainstream shows, which was the Weekend Breakfast Show and the UK Top 40. So I wanted to make sure I had a breadth of knowledge and not stay stuck in a kind of specialist field, because I think sometimes people can feel that if you're of a certain community, that's all you know. But I wanted to make sure that I wanted to know everything. So if we had a playlist meeting, I wanted to make sure that I could give an opinion about a Nirvana track or any other pop or rock tracks, because I wanted to get the full wide range of my Beeb experience. After the Radio 1 experience, I went and did a stint at Newsbeat. I was about 3 months up there, which was quite nice. And also I did a stint up in Manchester, which was the A-Force. And I think it was one of the Beep's first black TV strands. And I worked with a guy called Dele Onya. And he was bringing together various people who had skills in production and TV. That was one of my first tastes in TV. And I could see then that I kind of like radio, but TV is something that I would have to kind of get a bit more into. And if there's one bit of advice I'd say, know what you want to go for. It's no good trying to do a bit of everything, because the industry is so wide now. You've got to make sure you've got your own specialisms and disciplines in that. I came back from Manchester and I was offered a job at Choice FM, which was, at the time was a station that only had one frequency, which was the 96.9 frequency, and it was based in Brixton. It had it had a R&B and hip hop format, because I think when you say urban format, urban's kind of a different animal at the moment. So it was very distinctive, and I worked with two of the directors, which was Neil Kenlock and Patrick as well, and they then wanted to take it to the next level and made me the program controller, and I worked there for many years, working with the presenters, making sure that all the programs were done in a specific way, and building up the brand. The stations acquired another license, which was the SM1 license, and it grew from there to then be joined with other stations, so to speak, because it then started to take on DAB stations, and etc., and eventually the station got bought out by the Capital Radio, because they felt it fitted in within their portfolio. So again, it's then taken it to the next stage, and with Choice it grew to a much bigger brand, and it had a very distinctive flavour, so to speak. Stayed there for many years, and then eventually became the managing director of Choice. Did various things with various people around this room, actually, and then moved on from that to work on an Asian radio station. And that Asian radio station had a very distinctive format, but I think, again, it was where the direction of that station was going. So it was a case of looking at the station, looking at the format, and then fashioning that station into a kind of an Asian version of KISS. And I was quite happy to say that it grew in its audience during that time. I left that for a while, and then I went to work with another community station, which was based in Harsden, as a station called Bang FM, and working with them and their formatting. And then recently I've been jetting in and out of the country, working with various stations in Nigeria, and doing things with them and building up their format. So with radio now, how it is, it's an ever-changing animal, and you have to be wary that whatever discipline you want to put yourself into, whether it be in front of the mic or behind the mic, know what you want to do. Make sure that you've got those skills to kind of adapt and to grow. I think sometimes it's very easy for people to go into radio and think it's a very easy thing to do, and it's not. You have to make sure that you've got all the kind of experience behind you. And if that's one of the final tips of success, is learn and listen, because sometimes people feel that they can pick up the mic and they can go on the radio and whatever, but it's best to learn from some of the other people around you, and likewise listen to what the advice that you're getting, to make sure that you can then take that on board and make it better for yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivor. Anthea.
Hi, good evening everyone. It's nice to see so many young people. Makes me feel really old, actually. I'm not as established as these senior gentlemen, I would say. I'm more hands-on as a producer on BBC Breakfast Television at the moment. But I think when I was younger, I wanted to be an actress, but obviously, black parents, what are you talking about? Get your degree, get your education, be focused. And for many of you, when you just graduated, and you come out with your degrees, you got your 2-1 from Greenwich. That was me. I thought that I could send my CV and I could get the best job of my dreams, but the reality is it's not like that. You spend a few months sending your CV to so many different people. Sometimes you don't even get rejection letters. You just don't get anything. And you start to think, oh my God, what am I going to do? Should I just get a normal job as like in an office, or should I focus on my dreams to be in radio or television, that sort of stuff? So for me, I've did some work experience in the Asian newspaper, which is like the equivalent of The Voice. but that shut down a few years ago. And initially I went there, and you know, it's the dog's body. You just start photocopying facts in, and then you want to be like a little bit of a mini reporter. So they make you do vox pops. You go out there with your mic and you transcribe it, and you're really proud of what you've produced. You tell your parents, look, I'm in the paper, that sort of stuff. And I really enjoyed it. And what's good when we work for a small publication, because they've got such limited resources, you have to do everything. Because if you go to, say, like the Mirror and Work Experience, they literally make you have to do making cups of tea. But when you're in a very small organisation, you kind of get a good concept of how things are done from the early stages, from how it begins, you know, getting the story ideas and writing bits and how it's published at the end. So my biggest advice tip is start quite small. I know you've got your big dreams to be at the BBC and ITV, and, you know, own your own production company. But the reality is, if you start somewhere small, you kind of can master your skills quite early. So I think that's my biggest tip. So I went to New Nation and I moved on to be like the deputy entertainment editor, so you meet all the stars like Usher and Brandon, Tyrese. It's fantastic. But after a while you realise that editing is very good in entertainment, but the longevity career-wise, there's only so many times you can interview the celebrities, and there's a point where you start feeling that you're actually older than some of the R&B singers. You know, maybe not, that's not really working. So I was about 2 years into New Nation, and I think it was like the Brit Awards, and they said to me, and said, oh, you could be on BBC London. So I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. So the Brits were on, I was literally in the corridor on my mobile phone doing like a live little bit of reporting for them. I thought, oh, I quite like radio, you know. So obviously from print to radio, that seemed like so much fun. You get paid to talk, sort of thing, so that's great. And I had a really good editor at New Nation, and he was really kind, and he allowed me to work a 5-day week at New Nation, and on a Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock, I'd jet out, get in my car, put money in the meter and go to Broadcasting House to work at BBC London as a broadcast assistant. So that's obviously a really junior level, you know, making cups of tea, giving people water, escorting guests in and out of the building, that sort of stuff. But it just gave you a good insight in how programmes are made, and you start actually doing your vox pops with proper equipment this time rather than a little dictaphone, that sort of stuff. But I really enjoyed the radio stuff, and I'm quite chatty instinctively, so I thought that's quite good. And then they were launching One Extra, so that's a BBC, the new digital station at the time. So I was quite lucky enough to start some training stuff, and because of all my stuff at BBC London, they said, oh, you know, you could be like a junior member at One Extra when it launches. So One Extra launched in, I think, 2002, so I was part of the original team for One Extra. It's so different when I hear the station now, I think, oh my God, I'm so old. But I was one of the early reporters on TX News. I don't know if you used to do a programme, and I used to literally go out, you vox pop, do certain stories all the time. It's quite exciting. And I was lucky enough to be the entertainment reporter, and those were the days when the BBC had a lot of money. And we went to Miami and Trinidad, and it was just amazing. It's an amazing time. And I look back at that time and think, oh my goodness, it's fantastic. But obviously it was work, so you still had to get the job done. But, you know, you laugh, but when you think about those times, it's amazing. But when, you know, when the mic goes on, you've got to deliver. So as much as you could be having a fantastic time in Trinidad at the carnival, you've got to deliver and actually do some really good broadcasting. So I was quite lucky in that respect. And I presented the programme, and after I stopped presenting the programme, I got a really great opportunity to spend time in America. So after Katrina in 2006, I think it was, I spent 3 years in Louisiana, and that was just an amazing bit of reporting, because you literally saw firsthand, you know, what people are really going through after all the camera crews disappeared, sort of thing. And that's quite exciting in the sense that, you know, you're there firsthand, and you've got to kind of deliver to your audience the story. So I'm a bit more newsy than Ents, actually. And then when I really thought I was too old for One Extra, when the media was getting too much for me, I moved to producing at 5 Live, so that's sports and news. So that was really interesting. I worked at 5 Live Breakfast for a few years, which is really cool. And what you find about more mainstream news programmes, you're just so engaged with the story and getting the first to get the story and putting something on the phone to tell the story, and that's the passion of 5 Live. And also I tried to embrace myself with a little bit of sport, obviously, because it's a sports station as well, so that was quite interesting. And then I've been at Breakfast Telly for about 4 years in February next year, so I made the transition from, you know, the big beast of telly, and that's quite exciting, because it's so different, because a lot of people think you're a TV producer. What do? You know, you say you work at Breakfast, it's a bit of a conversation ender, like, so what do you do? Because obviously I'm not Bill and Sean, I don't present the programme, but what is the surprising element of a programme like Breakfast is there are so many people behind the camera that make them read and sound fantastic, they show the pictures that make them sound amazing. write the jokes that make them sound really funny. But the producers, the people behind that, you know, they kind of keep them afloat. We're the people that, you know, pull the strings of these glamorous people in front of camera. But my career's been really varied, and what I would say, follow your dreams. Don't listen to people that say, "Oh, the media's so competitive," because what you'll find out, a lot of people, they're doing many different jobs, but secret they know they wanted to work in telly, they wanted to work in radio, and all the time they're hard. They really want to get an excuse to do something, to be in front of camera or producing or their own production company. And you don't want any regrets in your life, because that's one thing I'm really proud of, that my parents, even though they said that focus on your education, they never said no. Don't be an accountant, Anthea. Do what you want to do, because after a while you get a bit resilient to the fact that you're moving in a different direction. I'd also say a big tip is don't be late. I know, it sounds really minor, but no one will ever say that Anthony's late. I'm always on time for work. It sounds so minor, but the reputation you get for someone that's always efficient, and you get everything done, and people always say Anthony's enthusiastic, because that's the sort of person you have to be in the media. And no one's going to do you a favour. No one's going to say, "Oh, that Anthony, she's such a nice, sweet girl." You've got to have a passion. You've got to be enthusiastic. And even though I'm talking to you, I'm quite elated to talk to you, rather than, if you've got an interview, you can't just go in and look quite shyly and with your head down. You've got to be confident, because there's so many people that want my job and everybody else's job. It's so competitive. In comparison to someone like my siblings, they work in IT. IT jobs, they're quite hard and competitive, but comparison to working in TV, it's so different. I don't know if you've got many friends that work in TV and radio. I doubt you really have, really. You might know one person within the media that's got a job that you thought, that can actually pay bills and mortgages. But that's the reality. I'm sure many of you know people in IT, even in the medical profession, it's very different to media. I would also say be focused as well, and know exactly, similar to what Trevor and Ivor was talking about. Be focused, because you can get. Many of the people I graduated with have never seen in the industry before, so obviously they're doing something completely different. But you've got to be focused, because I always knew I wanted to see every job that I had was bigger and better than the job I had before. I really don't like the idea of moving sideways, so that's my biggest focus. And also I think you should be realistic as well. I know everyone wants to be on telly, wants to be a garage MC or whatever. There's just not many people out there that are making money and paying bills with that career path. You can have your mixtapes forever. I think the biggest problem within this industry is that everyone's so blinded by the person in front of camera and the videos dancing on Channel U or whatever and MTV. There's so many elements of the industry that I'm sure you're not even aware of. Law, publishing, it's just amazing things where you really are within the media, but you're not front of camera in that respect. Producing, directing, commissioning. So I think that's what you guys got to educate yourselves in, knowing what other areas there are, because everyone understands that you're a producer, that's one thing, you're a presenter, that's another thing, but there's so many other elements of the media, and I think that's what you guys need to research before you kind of hit us hard with what you want to do. That sort of stuff. So I do speak quite fast.
Thanks for that.
I'm nervous, I'm not even gonna lie. Well, my name is Dumia Rota. I'm the director of Disturbing London. Disturbing London started off as a record label, but really now it's just a 360 entertainment company and just everything, really a lifestyle brand I'm trying to create, and we're trying to create. How can I work? Where do I start? I'm from South London. I went to a school called Haberdasher Rasks in South. That's in New Cross. I'm of Nigerian descent. Yeah, I've grown up listening to Choice FM. My cousins introducing me to jungle. I remember when I heard my first jungle record, from garage to obviously the whole R&B swing thing, Jodeci. So I've always been a fan of music and just loved music. And obviously, as Anthony said, I wanted to be honest with you, I did want to be in front of the camera. There was a point where I wanted to be a star, I wanted to sing, I wanted to MC. We've all gone through that, but it's like, so basically anyway, I always listened to music, watched music, was a fan. Obviously, you don't know, the music industry it's a closed business. If you don't really know how to get into it, you don't really know how to get into it. You just sit there thinking, how do I do that? You don't know who to send your CV to, you don't know who to pick up a phone to, every time I go into a record label, I ask A&Rs, how did you get your job? Because I don't see them, you don't see it first. You know what I mean? So you never so I'll tell you what happened. So anyway, studied, done my GCSEs, I wasn't the brightest. I wouldn't say I wasn't bright, but maybe I didn't fit into the curriculum and whatever the curriculum was teaching, you know. So my attention span's not the best. As you can see, I've probably been fiddling around while they were talking, you know. But no, so I went to, done my GCSEs, went to college. I went to Croydon College, and I went to SFX, and I went to Croydon, and then I went to Greenwich. I done sports science, and because, as you know, I wanted to do music, but you need my sister's a lawyer, my other sister done psychology, my brother does business. So in my family, you just have to go to uni. So I went to uni. I tell how it is. Like, you have to. It's the truth. So I went to uni. As you said, your mind's never really there. As you said, you have a deep desire of what you always want to do. That's probably what's brought all of you guys here. You know, like, you always want to do something, and you're in uni, and you're just always thinking, always dreaming and aspiring to be somewhere else. So I was in uni for like 2 years, then I dropped out. I took a year out. One of my friends in uni was an MC, and like, I've always been one of the ones in my group of friends that, you know, if we can't get into a club, I'm always the one that can talk to the bouncer and get in. Do you get what I mean? So I'm good, like, with getting into people's heads, I think, you know. So basically, one of my friends was MC, and then he was really good, and I was just like, you know, I didn't really know why, but I was just like, let me manage you. Just like, I was just like, I want to manage you, and then he was like, okay. He said, yeah, cool. And anyway, so as I said, I had an interview with Jasmine, and she was like, how did you get into it? So I was like, okay, music management. I went onto the Google, I put music management. I'm going to tell you that, like, I put music management, it was like, so I was like, every day I would come home, I was just reading up about music management. And so I was like, okay, read up about that, you know, publishing, you read about certain contracts and all of that. So I was reading that, and then, so it was like, okay, contract. I don't have a contract. Okay, you need a music entertainment lawyer. So I just put music entertainment lawyer at South East London. And then there was a whole list of them. And then I went down to go and see one music, it was called Entertainment Advice. It was in off Walworth Road. So I went down there, I was like, you know what, I need a management contract. He gave me a management contract. Anyway, I ended up giving it to my friend. We were gonna shoot it, but this was the time, so I think like Channel U had just started to come along, so you could do your own DIY video and put it out there. So I was planning on shooting a video, and obviously me and my friend were the same age, and so when his brother saw that I wanted to shoot a video for him, his brother like started muscling in, you know, like, you don't really know what you're doing, and I was just like, and so anyway, I gave him a contract. He ended up giving it to a high street lawyer. Entertainment contracts and high street law, it doesn't, it's different clauses, so she totally didn't get it. Highlighted the whole contract, and I was just like, you know, I got a bit disheartened, so I was just like, you know what, you're not really ready for this. So I just kept it moving, and just obviously still looking at, you know, watching videos and criticizing, and then your sister cussing you like, oh, if you think you can do it, do it yourself, like, you know all of that stuff. So coincidentally, cut a long story short, Tiny family cousin, his mum was around my house. I didn't know him at the time. She asked me what I'm doing. Obviously, I said, "Oh, auntie, yeah, I'm studying, but I like music." So I said, "I'm studying, but I'm doing music." She's like, "Oh, my son, he does music too." So I was like, okay, that's interesting. You know, you don't take that serious. I've got any little cousin. And then I went to a family party, and he was there, and I met him, and we were talking, and then we just left it as that. And then basically, I was watching Channel U, and he was in a group called Aftershock, and he done like a remix. And I saw him, I was like, you know what, this kid's like really good. He just had something. And so I was like, okay, Mum, could you get me Auntie Rosemary's son's number? She took about 10 years. Obviously, I don't want to go into it, but she's got a book, and it just took long. No, there's going to be a serious part of this. We'll take it back. But so basically, yeah. So anyway, so I was just telling. I told my girlfriend, I told my brother, I told my friend. I was like, you know what, this kid, he's really good. So I was in Nando's in Greenwich. Ian, and I swear I've been talking to him for about 2 weeks, and he walked past, and I was like, anyway, jumped out, spoke to him. We just started hanging around with each other. And then, so I was just talking to him. Obviously, then I had already been managing someone, so I knew that I thought this kid, he had a lot of talent, and I knew I wanted to manage him. So I started managing him, and then so he, setting up, social networking sites, MySpace and that, done all of that. He started to get a load of views. He had like about 1 million views at the time. It was picking up, and so, was thinking, okay, let's do a mixtape. And then you're like, okay, how do you do a mixtape? We just went down to the studio, recorded a mixtape. Then I was like, okay, we need manufacturers. So, the internet again. I'm gonna just go through it. Went in the internet, found a manufacturer. Had to meet with the manufacturer. Said to them how many. Obviously, in my head, Tiny had like 1 million views. So I said, okay, in my head, I was like, 1 million views. He must be able to do like 10,000. Just in your head. Pressed up 10,000 records. When I saw how many records, what the hell? So anyway, that's what happened. And obviously, but before then, you don't. Obviously, you need a CD, but you need a record label, and so that's how the record label. I just was doing things we were just doing things all by ourselves because I didn't know, and sometimes ignorance is bliss, like I didn't know where to take it, I didn't know who to do, so I just done it myself. So set up the record label, Disturbing London. It took like 3 years. We were on the road with T like for 3 years doing like shows, networking with people, and putting the CD out there. Obviously, it got into HMV with a whole load of uncleared samples. Just crazy. Like, so we done that, and then from there, T. He got signed. It was like 3 years. It was 3 years of a load of struggle. To be honest with you, I tell you the one thing that I'll just say to everybody is just like, if you really want to do it, you just have to carry it and just be as professional as possible in terms of like apply yourself and work. Like do it as a job every day. Like there was a time I wasn't getting paid from it like for 2 years, and it's just like, but every day just something in me would just make me like 9 to 5. You just do it 9 to 5. Reach out to people, email people. There's probably people over on this panel that I emailed. They may have ignored my email like today. So today they're saying to me, I'm ignoring their email. So like I'd say definitely apply yourself in terms of just being professional and don't get disheartened when people do close the doors in your face. Like at the end of the day, you have to. I'd say the 3 things for me is that you have to keep your objective as clear as possible. Know exactly what you're doing it for. Like when I got into the music game, I thought to myself, obviously I'd been a fan of black urban music for so long, and I just thought, at that time. We didn't package our music. There wasn't enough. I don't say we weren't proud of our music as much, and it wasn't packaged as well as our American counterparts at the time. So it was just like I really felt like we needed to control it and put it out there, and that just turn it into a great product so people want to buy into it. Because that's where we work. Because you get Lil Wayne or T.I. or 50 Cent, you see them do it, they may be portraying themselves as gangsters, but if you put them on Jay Leno, they're the most eloquent people ever, and like, I thought at the time, black British artists or just thought they were too cool to perform. Sometimes you go and watch them perform, they don't perform to you or they don't talk properly, and it's just like, no, but that's just real, like if you want people to buy your product, you need to package it in a right way. And obviously not to say that it was fake, but to maybe I was lucky enough to have an artist that I could transfer these skills to, and he was naturally like that. Those were the things that he just naturally had. He wasn't a conventional just like MC, like he was well spoken, he was there's not all of us are brought up I was brought up on a council estate, but I went to a really good school, so I've always like been like street level, but I understand about the bigger objective, so that's all, like really just apply yourself, keeping your objectives clear and just working hard really. And from there we've got Disturbing London Records, we've got Disturbing London Apparel, we've got Disturbing London Publishing, that goes through EMI, and Disturbing London Management. I manage Tiny, G Fresh, a girl called Sasha Keeble who's going to be signed to Polydor, a guy called Dot JR, and a production team called All About She. And I just like every day I'm living it. I'm just working hard and just trying to just live my dream, and that's all that you guys can do. You just have to apply yourself and just like believe in it. You believe in it. Anyone else, you at the end of the day, sometimes people are not going to believe in what you believe in. But at the end, if you properly believe in it and you feel it from your heart and you properly work as hard as you can, sometimes it doesn't happen. As they say, you need to have the push and you need to have the pull. Sometimes you don't get the pull. The pull's a bit of luck. You need that sprinkle of luck. But at the end of the day, as far as you just work your butt off, at least you know that you tried your hardest. You know, I get a load of people that say, I want to do music, but bring me and do that, and then like, they can't even send you one MP3. Like it's like, you know what I mean? If you're really in it, you have to put yourself in it and just go hard. So that's what I have to say. Thank you guys.
My name's Steve Sutherland. I suppose I'm known as a DJ. I've always bought records, like not a small amount of records. I spent all my paper and money on records, my birthday money on records, and I think up to now I've got like 55,000 records, which is excessive. Many an argument with my girlfriend about it, but it's what it is. I love music. Basically, to get into the industry, or media industry, I hung around in an office which is owned by a guy called Ian Dewhurst, who started off Master Cuts. I don't know if you know it, but it's a compilation of swing and R&B and whatever. And I just sat in the office. My friend worked there, Chrissy Label, and I used to sit there hoping something would come. And literally for 3 weeks, I think the guy who owned it just told me, what's he doing now? And I said, I know what to do in computers, because I was quite savvy with computers. So he said, okay, did computers. And that was it. Got up, did the computers. And then he was bringing out a series called, he'd done the Mastercard thing, which was very successful. He brought out a series called Rewind Selective with David Rodigan. And I was fortunate enough, I had the records. Rodigan, as big as his records are, they're probably in a warehouse somewhere or whatever. And I had them in my house because I was this vinyl collector, vinyl junkie. So every time they needed a record, I go, I've got it, jump in my car, drive down to my house, get it, come back, and they'd be like, oh my God, this guy knows about music. So in the end, they made me, I don't know how, they made me executive producer. And then I started writing, which is really funny actually. There's a film coming out now which is called The History of Lovers Rock or something. And I actually wrote the history of Lovers Rock in all the sleeve notes. And they've used that in the film, so I'm not getting paid. I can't work out, and that's fine, it's fine. I can't quite work it out, but I wasn't in that genre, I suppose, so that's why it would be overseen. And yeah, after we did the albums, we did 7 albums, which were via Polydor. Polydor said, oh, we need something else. So I did an album called One in the Jungle, which is brought to us by Ava. For the BBC, and it's the first jungle compilation album. I think it was Fabian Greenfine, was it?
Yeah.
Put the album together, but I had to do the clearances. So I've gone from being a guy who sits in a hallway, next thing I'm doing contracts and doing clearances. Never did before. Did that, and that's fantastic. During that time, I just fast forward a little bit, I went to a party with Montel Jordan and the girl who does America's Next Top Model. Tara Banks. I can never remember it. I was green to it. I wanted to get in the industry, but I didn't have to do it. And I was there and met Ivor there, and we were there. There was a DJ, I'm not going to say who was playing, but I said, I could do better than that. And luckily, I was sitting to Ivor at the time, and I can probably remember it. And it's Matthew Bannister, who ran the BBC. I did not know this guy. I didn't know he wasn't just standing there. And he said, right, you think you can do better than that? And once again, I'm not going to say who the DJ was. He said, right, get a demo tape together. I was like, what? And I've never done one in my life. And I said, what's a demo tape? And I knocked one together for me and we did this thing. And there was a guy called Steve Edwards, I'm trying to think now, and he was leaving the BBC. And Trevor Nelson was coming in. they need someone to fill the gap. So I filled the gap with Seamus Haji, who's a house producer, massive now, and Lisa Hanson did the voiceover. Myself, Seamus, Lisa, and Ida did the show, One in the Jungle, did that worked quite well. I thought, this radio thing's rubbish. Right? I didn't take anything of it, didn't think anything of it at all, and then I went to university, which made sense to me at the time. That was more, my mum turned around and said, Steve, why are you going to university? You're too old. You should go and get a house and go get a normal job at a post office, which is fine, but I didn't want to do that. I did my degree, I'm getting hot now, we live in it. I did a degree in philosophy and culture theory at North London Uni, did that full time, it killed me, really did kill me. I didn't really do the music thing, I just carried on doing whatever. By that time I was fortunate enough to do Twice as Nice. Now, if you don't know about Twice as Nice, before, and I'll say it now, not in a racial way, prior to that, there weren't really black events in the middle of London. There wasn't, and that's police, politics, whatever. We did that, it was myself, Trevor Nelson Spoonie, Steve Gould who owned it, put it on, and it was an outstanding success for 7 years. We brought out an album, the first album did all right, did like 60,000 units. The second album, I cut the deal, we went from a small label called React to Atlantic Records, Warner Records, and the album sold 200,000. And that was it just blew up. And it was R&B and garage, and it just worked all the way. Then I got a phone call from my radio saying, can you come to Choice FM? Never really done radio, did a little bit of Kiss. I said, all right, fine, I know nothing about radio though. He said, fine, no problem. Went there, they gave me a show. Then then put me from, I was on the other station, 106.
107.1.
I can never, I've done so much stuff. 107. Went from there, I went, and then I tried on 96.9, it's great. I said the album, they did really well. And then just after that, sorry, finished my degree. Just after that, turned around, won a MOBO. So then, turned around. Yeah. One MOBO's best DJ, thank you. Then I said, unfortunately I had to say to either I've got Radio 1, Capital Radio and Galaxy FM, they're all on me to be on their stations. So I said, great Steve, you're my mate, but you can't go back on the air no more on Choice FM. And I cried.
It was business.
No, it's exactly right now, I realise it now. So for 3 months I was off here, and then I went to Galaxy FM. They were a station out of London, they had X amount of listeners and whatever. There was a show, Schoolboy, who was on Capital, who was on radio then. He started the show and there's 20,000 listeners. Within 9 months, apparently there was 190,000 listeners. But what the station did was, and I say it straight, they didn't understand the music, but they actually said, Steve, just go with it. So any few contacts I had, I begged them, can I have this person, can I have that person, blah, blah, blah. So it went from Pink to Outkast to this, that, the other. And it just kept on rolling and rolling and rolling. And listenership went up and listenership went up. And in the end, it went up to like 500,000. And then all of a sudden, the station I worked at started taking back ownership. I'm like, well, you can't do that because I've done the work, you haven't done the work. But they still allowed me to do what I was doing, which is really kind of cool. I brought in a lot of assistants, a lot. And that's one thing I've got to say, if you're going to be doing any sort of internship, sell your soul. Not in a bad way, but you have to do, it's not a joke thing. Do you see what I mean? If you want to be the presenter, you're not going to get a job. Because I'm not going to give you that job, or another person, whoever you work for, is not going to give you that job, like Dummy or Anthony or either. They're not going to, Robin, they're not going to give you their job. Right? So just learn the best you can out of it. Take what you can out of it. But don't just think, well, I'm going to do this. I've had quite a few people who've actually tried to nick my things, which is good friends of mine. I've actually gone, I can't believe that they've done that. How people do it? Blatantly to your face. I did it happily. Anyhow, so I was there, and then I won another MOBO. Then I won another MOBO.
You won 4 MOBOs.
Yeah. You get the idea. And then I started winning all these other ones, mad ones, like best DJ in Spain. I'm like, I've only played there twice. But fine, you take all the accolades. My thing is, which I say with Dummy, is that if you put your head, if you try to stick to your one game, you're not going to make it. If you think, I want to steep, but yeah, I'm going to be real, I want to stay true to the game, it's not going to happen. The world is so diversified so much now. So you've gone from something like Pass Out to what Tiny does. Tiny does a bit of jungle, he does a bit of house, he does a bit of this. You have to diversify. And a lot of people, I still find a lot of artists who bang their chests going, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's like, you're not going to get anywhere. Yeah, they're happy to be driving their BMW, which is fine, but that's all they're going to have is their BMW. So I have to have more foresight than what it is. And a lot of them don't have foresight. It's not funny, right? So, anyhow, I was there at the group for 8 years. Capital Radio came in, and they changed the game. Let's put it that way. So they embraced the urban sort of music, and they didn't want to. They left other bits, other strands to other stations. Let's put it that way. There's a classic one. It's Darren over there. Darren worked with Beyonce. There's a classic one where. They did, Beyonce performed at White City for the BBC, I can't remember, Jules Holland or whatever, and I was so lucky, Beyonce came straight off stage and came straight to my show. And you if you knew the politics, because this game is more politics than anything else, if you knew the politics you have to go through to do anything, you'd actually give up. If someone actually explained it to you, what you have to go through to do your job, you'd actually give up. I had Beyonce there, and my bosses, instead of applauding the fact with Beyonce, luckily enough, live on air. And remember, my station's not based in London, it was based in Leeds, but it had satellite stations going around the country. They actually were upset, some of the bosses were upset that they didn't actually have Beyonce. Why has Steve got Beyonce rather than us? It's like, hold on now. Beyonce's coming past, basically driving past our studio, which was Heart FM in London at the time. So if she's driving past, she stopped off, you should be happy for that. But they still wanted to have ownership of something, which is really, when you go through it, and you will go through it, the politic part of it, you will actually think, I can't believe that person said it to me. And you literally have to swallow it and just carry on. Right? A lot of people freak out. I know a lot of ignorant people, and they freak out. You can't do that to me. You've got to be diplomatic. You've got to be diplomatic, right? It's not kissing anybody's ass. You have to understand the game they play, because once they shut those gates, you're not coming in. They're not going to allow you in at all. Right? If you're lucky enough to get your foot in now, but once they shut the gate, it's all over. I was there for 2.5 years. I don't know if you know that I got suspended. The only way I got in the New York Times. It's really good. I played a record by Busta Rhymes called Arab Money. I was not the only person to play it, which attests to the fact that I actually did have listeners. I got 4 complaints live on air. Luckily enough, I apologised. And radio, you're taught not to apologise. You're taught not to apologise. You don't apologise now because it's a admission of guilt. I apologise and just said, like, I don't know why we're getting this feedback. You know, I'm not going to play the record anymore. Fine, no problem. It went from 4 complaints to the Friday. The show was on the Sunday. To the Friday, it was 10,000 complaints. They did. They basically, a bunch of kids just did a whole email thing and blah blah blah. Which the internet's doing said earlier on. It's really good when it wants to be. So I was suspended for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. On 4 pays, it's fine. And right? And one of the few people, you know, all the people on here, I didn't know doing it at the time. Anthea and I, they actually rang me, and Jasmine too, rang to see what's going on. There weren't many. You know when you think you have got loads of friends? You ain't. You really haven't got, and it's like that. It's really not. It's horrible. It's a great business to be in. Anthony was speaking about earlier on about going around the world. I've done so much 5-star living and 7-star hotels. It's fantastic. You make, if you're lucky enough, you make good money, and I won a mobile once. I'll tell you this. I won a mobile once. I was a student and then won the mobile. And I walked to my bank in Peckham, Woolwich Bank. And as I walked in, they clapped. And the funny thing is, a couple of weeks ago, they were going to close my account. It's surreal things like that. It's surreal. But all I'm trying to tell you, it's not what it seems it's like. Classic cases is that before the whole tiny thing, dummy thing came around, I initially heard the record and I was like, oh my God. And I played another rule that I broke. You can't play a record more than twice in the thing, but you know, our music, if you like urban music, rewinds and whatever. And I played past that 6 times in my show. It's a national radio show, right? Boss actually phoned me up and said, like, why have you done that? What are you doing? The whole lot. I said, because it's going to be a big record. I didn't know how big it was going to be. I didn't know how big tiny it was going to be. And I had to ring up Dummy. Yeah, I called up Dummy. Why am I not? The EMI didn't service me the record. I don't even know where I got it from. EMI, the record label that Dummy was working with, did not say. We was maybe an hour.
Yeah, see, when the questions come, there's a lot, as he said, there's a lot of politics in the game. But if you're a game player, you have to understand how to, like, if you allow people, it's all about ownership, as you said, Steve. Like, when you own something, you have to try to own it as much and, like, obviously guide it and give it the journey it needs, because some people don't respect some outlets, and at the end of the day, they don't respect some of the outlets that we have all come from, you know. And obviously the music has become more commercial, so they would prefer it to go on a BBC or a Radio 1 or like. But we have to understand that it comes from the grassroots, and where it starts is from the urban grass. So we have to feed the urban community, but it just we'll get to all those questions.
Yeah.
It's all it's politics, but it's good politics. Everything there's politics and everything.
Yeah, you got to be a politician. You got to be really on your feet. And Anthony said earlier, don't be late. I'm always late.
You're always late.
Yeah, I'm always late, and I always hear in the worst part is when you hear. But I work on my time.
No, that's not you.
That's not what we're trying to teach you.
I'm lucky. I'm self-employed, right? So, but anyhow, bottom line is, I've done what I've done, and it's been a fantastic journey. And what's happening now is that I've met with, luckily, I've been 9 months off the air. I'm now really speaking to BBC Radio 6 about doing a couple of shows about urban music, which is really funny because it's Radio 6. So I'll be doing if you like, the voice of that. And at the end of the day now, I've teamed up with a couple of Premiership footballers, and they're buying clubs across the country, and I'm a partner with them, and that's what I'll be doing at this present time. So I'll be doing that as well as doing the radio bits too. That's it. Thank you.
So you've heard about our panel, but I wanted to actually hear about you guys, because if you know successful brands, you'll know that every successful brand in the world gives its audience or its fans what they want. And as I'm aware you're here tonight, I want to know what you guys want. So just as a show of hands, just so that I know which areas of questioning, are you mostly artists, production teams? Do you want to know more about music and artists and getting into that side? Do you want to know about TV and entertainment and getting into journalism for media? Can you just shout out or let me know? News journalism? Artists.
Music.
Production, music, so a bit of everything that everyone here can help with. Okay, so we're going to keep it short and snappy, because as testament to how much these guys have done, they've told you about themselves for half an hour practically.
Wow.
So we're going to keep the answers short, snappy, and with the questions. One of the things that's really important is your network in whatever area you go into. And I always say your network is your net worth. And that really, really is the truth. Like, take that with you and remember that, because I can say to you that all these people, aside from Robin, who I just met today, but I plan to network with you after tonight, but everyone else on this panel has somehow helped me build my brands and been useful with me. So when I went across to MTV Base, for example, Steve came along and did DJ takeover shows. Dumi and Tiny Temper obviously contributed to all our content. I know that when I wanted stories to go out about MTV Base and interviews and shows, I would have hit the New Nation where Anthea was, or The Voice, etc. It didn't matter to me that I worked at The Voice as a columnist as well, and I still do, because to me it's not about giving them one thing and not giving them it. If you are a great brand networker, you will give a bit of exclusivity to everyone. So I'd give The Voice one story, I'd give The Nation another, etc. I'd give Galaxy one exclusive, I'd give Choice FM another. Ivor came on board and was always really supportive with Choice and MTV Base. He helped us do things that the channel had never done before, like carnival floats and, you know, news stories that went back and forth with Synergy. So as I say to you now, people in this room could be your network in the future. So really learn about, you know, mingling.
And you was also on Choice as well.
I was also on Choice, yes.
Right.
George Kay and I used to do a very naughty gossip slot.
That's right.
All the record labels used to listen to, and we caused scandal and outrage. And no one's ever touched us since, but we won't talk about that because I'm professional now. So, I just wanted to talk about networking, because I know it's really difficult. It can be really hard when people exchange emails and phone numbers, and then you start feeling like you're pestering people and you're not quite sure. I mean, I want to just quickly throw out there to you guys, for example, Robin and Anthea, when it comes to TV, how do people get into and work with you? What are 5 buzzwords maybe that people would put on emails that would make you sit up and recognise someone that you would want to perhaps bring into your organisation? What are networking tips for you that would make you feel positive as opposed to someone stalking or bugging you on your emails?
It's just availability. It sounds really sad, but I have to say, if you're free as well, I know, like, oh my God, no one wants to work for free, but your keenness, you don't know what will lead to, that step in the door, who you meet when you're within TV Centre. It's like coming in the building literally, and the amount of friends you make, and the people are like, oh, where do you work? Okay. You know, I think it sounds terrible, but I spent time working for free, and I know no one wants to be exploited, but the fact is, in a short period of time, the amount of people you meet, and you have a coffee with them, and you don't know the next project you do, you'll be paid. So I think getting in the door is the biggest thing. I think you can't be too stushy, you know, I've got 2-1 from Greenwich. It doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't mean anything, and that's what I hate to say, that when you on your course and your lectures think, oh my God, that's the most amazing video outfit you've made, and you're like, yeah. In the real world, it's nothing, because it's just, you know, it's not being broadcast anywhere. It doesn't mean anything. But that's what I think. You've got to get in the door, and when you're there, I remember when I was at BBC London and volunteering as a work experience, I just never left, and that's my whole ethos. If you come in somewhere within the door, just never leave. So at the moment, a lot of people do short placements and then they forget their contacts. Just never leave. I always go like, oh, what's any shifts going on? Keep in contact. So maybe your work's finished for a period, but you've got to keep those contacts going.
Sure.
You don't know what to lead on to. Yeah.
Robin?
Well, someone said be clear about where you want to end up, and I think having a focus is important. To be blunt, if you want to be a journalist, don't start by targeting network news, because that's where people tend to end their careers, not start it. But local newspapers, hospital radio, internet sites, write your own stuff. I think that's important, and increasingly we do, because at ITN we want to attract more people from underrepresented groups, and we do a lot of work with organisations that support underrepresented groups. So you know all about the Media Trust, Jasmine, but CAPS 22, Aspire, Shine, lots of other good, a lot of them supporting Black and Asian journalists. We're very tuned into those people. We're increasingly running talent competitions and masterclasses aiming specifically at underrepresented groups. You've got a real high value because of your cultural background. So don't undersell yourselves.
One thing I wanted to also add to, because you just pointed it out there, and I'm sure it relates to a lot of you here, is, do people need to go to university and have degrees to get anywhere in our industry? Because speaking from my own experience, I know that a lot of the people that we hire, just from a TV point of view, I want to know that they have a degree usually, because it means to me they have a certain standard of working, a certain ethos regards punctuality, professionalism, responsibility, delivering, writing work, etc. How do you guys feel about that, Robin?
Should I go first? Well, I didn't go to university, so it's pretty rich for me to say. you need to be a graduate, but
I think it's different now, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
the vast majority of people we would look at would be graduates. Yeah.
Because I never did a postgrad. I grafted through, but a lot of people now have to do postgrad.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is, how many people here in this room have done free work placements, work experience, internships? Yeah, quite a lot of you.
Not enough though.
No, not enough. But so many people are doing work experience and have done so many at numerous different brands. How do they make the transition from unpaid to paid? Because what I'm finding now on CVs is when people apply to me, they've done work experience and internships in about 7 different places. And I'm like, well, why do you still want to work for us then? You should be now aiming at a higher level. Well, what's gone wrong?
I think things like that, as I said, it's just keeping your objectives. Like, I think you lose your objective because you go in first trying to obviously doing an apprenticeship or whatever for free, and then you just get into a rut. And as you said, it's all about networking and socializing and just be honest. You know, like I was my distributor that we ended up distributing through. I just started just hanging around with him and just going to meetings with him. I went to New York with him, sitting on meetings, just rolling, just not making any money, but all the knowledge, as they say, no knowledge is lost knowledge. Like, do you get what I mean? So even the university thing, if you've done a degree, you haven't done a degree, you just take your knowledge and just move on. But I think sometimes when people do loads of work experience, they go to one place, and it's a social thing though, isn't it? You know, like you have to take to people. You know, you can't have the worst character in the world and then work for free and then work somewhere else for free. If you don't, if people are not connecting to you or they're not engaging, because at the end of it, if you work for free, you work hard. At the end of the day, why are you going to make somebody leave your organisation if you've already trained them up and you could obviously pay them so just a little bit more, not as much as they got, but you should keep them on. But if you're not being kept on, then
because also focus on where would you like to work. So,
yeah.
you know, if I wanted to work at BBC London, I'll try to get work experience at BBC London, get the contacts at BBC London, because that's where I would like to work for my first job. And before you know, hopefully with your work experience, like, oh, Amphi, let's give Amphi some shifts, and then you get paid. But that's, you've got to focus on where would I like to work, where do I want to be. I think that's you should really have the back of your mind.
I was going to say that I've had loads of interns, and there's never been any real, for one of them there's been payment for them, the rest of them there wasn't. But then there was a couple of times where I'd be working and I'd have so much faith in them. If I remember one person in particular, and there was a Mary J. Blige interview going on and I couldn't do it, and it was in New York. And I looked at her and I said, go. And she looked at me, and she'd never even been to New York, never done anything. And they stuck her on their plane, first class, proper hotel, the whole lot. And she took her sister with her, and the rent company paid for it, which is great. They paid for it, and she done that interview. So that if she got that in her CV, that's what she can take off and take somewhere. Not everybody's can do it, but at the same time, the other person, you know, Billy, works with me all the time. Billy has done everything she can. I've let her do interviews with Usher, with everything else. Chris Rock. Yeah, I've always made sure I've given her a minute with each artist. Even when we did Tiny Temper, I made sure she did that, and then she ran off and did something off someone else, and always, pulled it her way. So in the end, it's on her CV, and that's what she can do. So it's not always about the money at all.
So we're going to do questions.
Can I just add one thing? I think some companies don't have the kind of back infrastructure to deal with work experience, and I think why certain people have bad work experiences is that if they come into work with a producer or they come into work with a presenter, there's not the kind of this is the schedule of things that you're going to do this week, and then at the end of the week I want you to then come back and say this is what you've done or this is what you've learned. And one of the things that I'd like to kind of pass on is, like, if you're going to be trying to work with a producer, then I want you to learn how to use the editing equipment. I want you to learn how to use the studio and the mics. And then you then build up to the work experience part of, okay, we need this 15-minute program put together. So work with the producer, and then the producer leaves you alone to finish it off. So the person feels they're getting something out of it. And I think some companies don't have that infrastructure. They kind of just, you know, hope the person keeps following them around. And then sometimes with the people following them around, they get really disillusioned. They don't see why, you know, they thought this company was great, and, you know, it's all had lots of bells and whistles and everything else, and then they leave and then go to another place, and it's just as bad.
That's why Anthony's top tip of actually starting off somewhere smaller or somewhere that's under-resourced is my favourite tip so far, because actually it means that you'll be really hands-on. If a company hasn't got much money and resources, they're more likely to trust you to do bigger things, etc., etc. If you're a massive branded company, like one of the big broadcasters, if you start as a runner or an intern, you're going to be doing menial jobs. If you go somewhere a little bit smaller, you'll probably be producing within a matter of 6 months. And that's a big look. And I only give responsibility to interns and researchers that I can trust. You know, there's a real attitude. It's like you say, things like punctuality, delivering good work, things that have been researched well. It's like when Dumi said about researching everything he's ever learned. I've got interns who come in and they're Oxford, you know, and Cambridge graduates, and they don't know how to do the most basic research. And I will show them, go into Google, type in exactly what they're asking me, and it's really mind-numbing to hear that they just haven't got, you know, a hustler mentality. You really have to know what you're doing. And also it's about having an eager and someone you can trust, because I'll say to my team, okay, something last minute has come up, who can step up and do it for me? And everyone will shiftily look around and go, oh, I've got something on, blah, blah, blah. And it will be the 2 or 3 that go, I've got it for you. Those 2 or 3, I'm going to champion. I'm going to make sure that they do well in their careers because they didn't let me down. And that's an attitude I don't find a lot of young people have. Just moving on quickly, I want to talk about brands and artists, because a lot of you probably are. Artists, how do you make your own brands? How do you make your own lane? When you look at someone like Tiny Temper, he came out from nowhere, it seemed to us, and was totally different. You know, we were used to the Tinchies and the Chipmunks and the Bashies and the Akalas, and suddenly this guy came on, he didn't look like them, he didn't sound like them, he didn't speak like them. Dumi, how did you make your own lane with that brand, with that artist?
I think it was just being true to yourself and being true to what tea was. And I think it was a market that, I think there was a space that loads of people related to, but were too scared to like be in that lane. It's just that I would say again, I'd think maybe sometimes UK acts, some UK MCs, when they go into the booth, they weren't being ambitious enough. They were just making the music for niche, or my boys would like this, or my friends are gonna like this. You're not thinking it on a global level, like, to be honest with you. And I would say it's just like, obviously now you're seeing the influx of the Wiz Khalifas, like the Drakes and stuff. You know, these are like just cool kids that just love music. Like, not everyone has to be a gangster, not everyone has to talk about drugs. No, if that's not you, don't talk about it. Do you get what I mean?
Because I got Tiny on Breakfast, you would know this anyway, but last year, and I was battling, oh my gosh, I was battling, because they assume that a bit of swearing on the album is going to be like not educated.
Yeah, they always do that.
And I was like, I was begging and pleading, and when he was on, they're like, oh my god, what a lovely chat, what a lovely chat. And they were like, oh, you know, and he drinks tea, I don't know, you never know about it, but it was like,
it happens a lot,
you know, I knew he was educated, I knew he was a good talker, I knew he was, and I always, when I book certain people, I have confidence in the people that I book on Breakfast, because I know they're not going to let me down. And he didn't, I was like, oh, what a lovely chat.
Yeah,
It's
but
like, it's so
this is
surreal.
what, sorry, not to cut you off.
That's alright.
I'd say, see, just building your brand, Jasmine, it's just like, basically, I'd say all of us, everyone knows how to talk well, everybody has manners. It's just playing up to what the stereotypes are. It's just like the breakfast, your breakfast producer, whoever the bosses, they feel young black male. Oh, he's a rapper. He's not articulate. Do you get what I mean? I get it all the time. I go into offices sometimes and people are like, what's going on, bro? Like nudging me, like shake my hand. Do you get what I mean? It's just like that's just what happens. So basically, we're just getting back to building your brand, just being true to yourself and representing a few things. Obviously, when you represent something and you stick to that, this is what I represent, other people will identify with that, and then that's what they relate to, and then that's building your brand, you know. So if it's like you're wearing a pair of specs, or you wear just a certain type, it's culture, isn't it? It's your lifestyle, that's your brand, just what you represent. So
was Tiny that brand, the brand that we see now? Was he always that brand, or did it develop?
I'd say it's almost like the group of people that we obviously are around, and our friends and family and people we hang around with represent that brand. You get what I mean? So it's almost showing the world that brand. And I'd just say it's a London. There's a London brand in it. That's why I'd maybe say loads of people do identify with him. It's just like Jay-Z. is New York, yeah, and Jay-Z represents New York. Anyone in New York, he can fly the flag of New York or America because he is, every black male in America can relate to Jay-Z. The same with T. That's what I would say. I think everybody can relate to T, and then on a different level. If it's that, you're not just that gangster, or you're not on that, you'll get that. Obviously, if you are on that, at the end of the day, he was brought up in Peckham. He lived on Aylesbury Estate, so he gets. Do you get what I mean? It's just having different elements of everybody in you, I think, and just representing that.
Can I just say something? They was talking about the obstacles just now, and I remember when myself and Dumi actually spoke the week the record was service, past out of service, and Dumi was like, I'm having a bit of resistance against. The group was owned by Global, so it's Capital Radio, Choice, blah blah blah. Choice FM would not play the record. They wouldn't play the record, and you'd speak to, and I'm not knocking them because they've got their own agenda. But you speak to the bosses and you say like, why are you not playing the record? You're like, it's just another record, isn't it? And we both couldn't understand it, so we were trying to work out. And I don't work for Dumi doesn't work for me, and there's no money changing hands. But literally, you have to at times work together. A lot of people, especially in my day, back in the day, nobody worked together. I think some of you guys would attest to that.
It was so competitive. DJs on different urban radio stations wouldn't talk to each other, play on the same gigs, be on the same show. I had to beg, luckily my network, and this is why people talk about networks and social networks and circles, is, I knew Steve, I knew Trevor, I knew Tim, I knew George Kay, etc. I could say, oh come on, just for me, would you come and do the show? I'm not doing the show with him, I'm not even going to be in the same room with him, blah, blah, blah. But you'd work it would be, you're doing it for me. And we got this photo shoot, and I'll never forget it. It was like 50 of the biggest urban DJs in the country, and no one believed we'd get it together. It was in the middle spread of Touch magazine. They did the show together on MTV. Everyone said you'll never do it, but it was my way of making sure that all the connections I had from Choice, Kiss, One Extra, Galaxy, wherever it was, came together. And this is why I say to you, it's not about them and us, it's about you all pulling together for your brands. Because if you lift each other up together and unite, you'll all get bigger. But if you actually are crabs in a barrel and all trying to get one off the top of each other, it will never get anywhere.
Yeah, I've just got to say quickly say that, I work for some of the biggest brands in the world, so I work for Pasha. If you don't know Pasha, it's the best nightclub in the world. And some of the DJs, the higher end house DJs, the guys are on like madman, like 40, 50,000 pounds. They actually hate the other person, they'll slag them off. But when they've got to do a gig and they're both making 100,000 pounds, they're best friends. I'm like, why don't urban DJs do that? And they're just getting into it now, just getting into it now. Before
Very
they
new
didn't
young
do it.
generation is, absolutely. So I'm sure everyone here would like to know how they can actually get TV and radio coverage. TV comes after radio, I think. Everyone would agree, right? Radio, everyone starts the buzz. The DJs, I think, have always been, one of the most important things actually when it comes to developing stuff. Dumi, what kind of angles did you have to go to get the DJs to play your stuff? And then Ivor and Steve, can you talk about what works with you and what doesn't when artists cold call, managers cold call, etc.? Can you three take that one on?
Well, I had friends that were DJing on One Extra and went college with, and they just, you can't beg people to play a record, but I would stand outside One Extra. There was a certain DJ on Trace FM that I used to call him up, put the CD there, and he just wasn't getting it. He just wouldn't ever play it, and never ever gave us a chance. But you just always have to just put the CD in people's hands and just ask people to get the record. And once you get one champion, just if that one person sees you, you have to continue watering that plant. Like if that's the one person that's giving you that look, then you just have to do everything they want you to do. If it's drops, if it's interviews, do that. And then obviously once you plant that seed in the building, it usually grows. Because sorry to say this, but DJs obviously it's all about ego. And obviously they're artists too, so you're rubbing a lot of people's egos. So you can't be the star. Like there's so many people like that have aired, like obviously as they say, aired my calls or like ignored me and things like that. But at the end of the day, I don't mind. I can call you all day. I see you. If you ignore my call, I'm still gonna say what's going on. It's a business, because you understand when you're busy and you're the you're the star. Like so sometimes you don't see anything like in front of you. So basically, you just always just have to give your music, just keep humble and keep focused, and hopefully some person will champion your record. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. I think you've got to find a champion within the station. I think for me, two things kind of stick out. One is the fact that sometimes when certain artists or management come to you, certain things ain't packaged properly. There doesn't seem to be a plot with the record. It doesn't seem to be a plot with the artist, but they've got something and they think it's hot. And then whether the station then jumps on it and then plays it to death, then you get that kind of annoying situation where they come back 6 months later and ask you to play the same record again, and it hasn't been remixed, but there's now a plot, and you think that you kind of flogged it to death. So I think you've got to have a plot. Don't kind of give something if it's not ready. I think, you know, we've gone through the, you know, I think so many times there are CDs to be dropped to me and it's written down with a piece of pen, and that's it. Nobody knows what it is, but they expect you to play it, expect you to then go hunting for them. It's not going to be that way. You've got to make sure that you've got a plot, and likewise with that plot, you then know how you're going to present yourself, do the drops, do all the things that you said, so that every station feels special. And then that artist then will be coming back back more and more. And I think, you know, back in the day they used to have a lot of music committees and DJs used to sit around and, you know, say, yeah, this is the record to champion. Nowadays it's slightly harder, and, you know, it's harder to get that music through. You know, you've got to look at sometimes a lot of the events where you can kind of go and champion, you know, your act and make sure that they get to a wider audience using all the social media, as you say. But, you know, if the record's great, nobody will hold it back. And if you've got someone who's got really good ears and they can see that record's great, they'll champion that record, and then they'll champion that artist. I just hope that sometimes, and I've been there, where the artist doesn't reciprocate that. They go and they take off and they don't come back to do that station drop. They feel that they've made it already. So you've got to make sure that the relationship is tight, because what happens is that you can really pee off a station if you don't make that interview, or you turn up late, or you completely, you know, because the station will drop you just like that. So you've got to make sure you keep that relationship tight.
And then in a year's time, when they're not doing so well and they get dropped from their record label, they come ringing your door again and go, can you help me? And
That's
by that
right.
point, you have such a bad taste in your mouth, you go, no.
That's right.
Anthea, Steve, did you want to
No,
add to
all
that?
I was going to say
Is
was,
there anything else?
as these two guys just said just now, you have to package your stuff. I see a lot of stuff which is, it's just terrible.
How should they package it?
I mean, what I'm getting is like, you know, the classic one is I've got 4 Facebook pages, and people like, you've got to play my record, blah, blah, but they actually harass me. And I don't have to be your friend. I don't have to be anything. I don't care about you. That's how you actually feel. Right? No, jokes aside, you actually don't care. You're like, I don't know you. I'm getting a couple of moments now. Can you listen to my record, or go to YouTube or my MySpace? Like, do I look like an A&R person? Why am I doing this for free? I'd rather not do it. And that's how it is. A good record, or good package record, if you've got good, even if your bio's short and concise, a lot of them are like, I grew up in a council estate, so did I. I don't care. Tell me about your music, tell me what's so great about you in 5 words. And Robin was saying earlier about Twitter. Twitter's great. Because you've got to get the right, it's got to be concise in 130 words or whatever. And that's exactly what you have to do when you're selling it. You don't have to harass anybody. The worst thing to do is that, the classic is when I used to come around to my car and people started finding out where I lived. My car, Dubby probably gets it down. My car was full of CDs. On the back and on the front. My car every day, and I'd be like, no, this can't be right. And guess what? I'm not going to play your record. I'm just not going to play it. I don't care you like that. I'm definitely not going to play it.
Aside from littering the car with CDs, what else should they not do that some of them might do? What else is a big no-no?
I think they've just got to be. I don't know if there's a no-no, but apart from peeing you off, but I think you've just got to be actually persistent, but in a nice way. It really does work. The classic was, I'll never forget. I was at the Heart FM building, we were doing our show, and I went outside for a cigarette, and there's a black guy standing out there. Nobody knew where our show came from. Everyone thought it came from Leeds or Birmingham or whatever. And there's a black guy just standing outside, and he's like, look, I know you're Steve Southern, I'll find out where your studio is. And yeah, I thought this guy seemed engaging. So I said, come inside, mate. Went in there, and I sat him down in the studio, and my producer went mad. And he sat down, gave me a CD, I thought, all right. And I actually played it. It's Bashy. So he actually hunted my show. Nobody knew what it was, because we did, Heart FM are very afraid of a lot of things, right? But actually, this guy came in, he had manners, he had his record, it's finished, it was done, right? And I thought, you know what, if you can find me, I'm going to play your record. And that's exactly what I did. you just got to be persistent but nice.
Absolutely.
You can actually be an arsehole later, right? But while you're pushing your stuff, be nice.
And also learn about the structure of places. It's like Steve said. I'm sure even Robin and Anthony will tell you this. The people who are in front of the camera or the mic people on the DJs on the radio station, they're not the ones you want to harass, because remember, there is a structure of staff, playlist teams, DJs, producers, etc. They all work together to make new artists happen. So if you're sending it straight to a DJ, fine, but actually you'll probably get somewhere better, quicker, if you send it to their producer or to the intern who's working with that producer, because they might slip it to them in the radio room. Do you know what I mean? So don't go for the big face and the big name, because they get bombarded. Try sneaking it in other ways, structured. It's like when I was at MTV and MTV Base, people would send me stuff. That's not how MTV works. We have a playlist team. They tell me what goes on the playlist. I deal with editorial. But people would still harass me and never really understood that. So before you start harassing people, understand the structure of how these things work. And Anthea, when it's gone from radio, how do they then get onto TV? What would you consider for breakfast for music artists? Who would you bring in? What do you need to have?
Well, breakfast is the audience is the biggest thing for breakfast. So our audience are a lot older. So the reason why Tiny came on, because I knew he was blowing up big last year. And I think certain artists are so big, it's not about your parents' generation, it's that the fact that they have kids that might listen to him, and that's how they get on breakfast. Breakfast is not going to have an unsigned act and somebody that hasn't had a #1 or hasn't sold any records, somebody that's bubbling, that will never get on breakfast. And that's just the reality of it. The fact is they need someone, when you turn on to BBC One at a certain time of the day, you've got to kind of know who that is or have an idea who that person is. So breakfast is not really where you would start out, it's like kind of like where you kind of finish when you're successful, really. I just think you've got to just be a bit more smarter as well, less obvious. It's not about just doing BBC One, ITV, there's lots of cable stations as well to get out and about. I think that's what you've got to hit, because obviously everyone wants to get on BBC One and different MTV, but the reality is if you're growing, you're not going to get those big networks programs, you're not going to get those big interviews on This Morning or Daybreak and stuff. I think you've got to think about what else is out there and how can you get out there.
Sorry, I just wanted to say something. I think it's kind of valid, but all of these points from breakfast to radio, it all starts from yourself. If you build it's all about building your core fan base. Like if you build your core fan base, your own core fan base through social networking sites and whatever, and then from there you research from what Yasmin just said. You research who are the DJs that can play records on a limb, because they're the ones that are endorsing new talent. So you have to know, because there's playlist radio DJs, and there's DJs that can play records, specialist DJs. So through there, a specialist DJ is not going to play your record if your core fan base is not there, or you're not generating a little bit of a buzz all by yourself. So from there, when you get that first champion who's going to champion your record, because you can see that you've generated your own buzz, you get onto radio, and then from there hopefully it should start generating a little buzz in that building. Then you get onto playlist, and then from playlist hopefully you get you get signed and you get a big single. From getting that big single, then we move on to breakfast. Then from obviously when you get that big single, then you're in the commercial world, mainstream world. That same person, see the old people or the middle England, they're like, okay, I've been hearing this little boy. Have you heard this boy? And then the little kids that have been supporting you in the car when they're with their mum and dad, they've been supporting you from back in the day. They're like, we've not been seeing him from internet. They're like, wow, he's a star. And then from before, like it all links up. It's 360, it connects.
And they say in like a script, he's an internet sensation.
Exactly. And then you get onto morning. You get onto the morning shows. So you have to get it starts from yourself, basically. 360, the full circle.
Robin, I wanted to ask you how you found the biggest changes have been in the last decade, because clearly the way people marketed artists and the way producers found content for the shows is very different from a decade ago. What would convince you to use music or new reporters? What role has media and social media played?
Well, it's interesting. One of the sort of pluses I think people of your generation have got is that you understand new media. Not many people here, I'm sure, have got a mobile phone that doesn't take video. when I started in the industry, if you wanted to take video for television news, you had to have a £40,000 camera. And now you can do it on a, I don't know what an iPhone is, but 300, 400 so it's much more accessible. There's many more platforms now. But it's interesting, probably the biggest news story of this year has been the Arab Spring, and most of that picture came to us via the internet because of where it was and because it was inaccessible. A lot of it was very poor quality, but because it was such an enormous story, that, what we call UGC, user-generated content, had a really high value. So I think anybody who's got a video camera or a phone with video on, just take lots of video, you get good at it, the quality could be very good. And that's a good way of finding a way in. Not often will you come across a 9/11 or a Concorde crashing, but if you've got your phone with you, it's a good way of starting off. And I think I don't tweet, I don't use Twitter, I don't use the internet that much, but people of your generation do, and that to an employer like me is a real advantage. You know, you be able to find, we've got young producers of your sort of age in our newsroom, that when it came to Tripoli being under attack, that's who we would use to find a way of finding people that we could Skype or get other ways of using social media to get that picture in. So it's a real value.
Even like the London riots, because I was on shift that Saturday night in Tottenham, and everyone was looking to see how things were starting to spread, and through Twitter, it reacts really quick, far quicker than we can broadcast actually.
When it comes to TV, Anthea and Robin, what are media looking at in the future that young tech-savvy people like the people here today can be looking at? Should they be writing their own blogs? Should they be going out and doing citizen journalism where they're actually filming their own, footage? Should they be sending stuff in? Should they be uploading it on their Twitter pages? What's the way forward?
You do so many different things online. You've got to think about your copyright as well. It's the only thing that everything's so accessible, it's out there, but you've got to be careful. If you've written a fantastic blog and then you see elements of it in the Guardian the following day, that's a bit disheartening. So you've got to be a bit careful in that respect. I think that a lot of people are trying media now, which I hate because I hate online. That's just about me. But a lot of people, they can do the radio, they can do the online, and they can do the filming as well. It's about being for the media right now. It seems to be more multitasking. If you've got one story, can it be online? Can clips be on the radio? Can the pictures be on telly? And that's how things for breakfast specifically, and even just the BBC in general. I think it's for you, obviously, for ITN as well. Even if you look on the website for like the Guardian, the Telegraph, they've got films as well. It's like, aren't they newspapers? But that's how things are changing. So it's all getting very small. So you've got to be
I think multi-skilling is very important. So learn how to take good video, think about the sound as well. Everybody thinks about last, and it's really important. But learn how to edit. Lots of good online editing tools now, because we sort of, it's much more an expectation now than when we take on young journalists that you can shoot and edit.
Absolutely.
Sorry, interrupting very quickly, ask a question. All of the panel members and you have talked about being professional, and I work with young people in lots of different capacities, and what I found is that lots of young people don't really have a proper understanding of what being professional is, and there are lots of young people in here, and I don't want to be patronising or anything, but there are some young people who are in it for the glory, and they don't understand really what the essence of being professional is. So I was wondering if any of you could articulate for you what being professional is.
In a nutshell, I mean, for me, I've mentioned a few of them. It is things that everyone will take for granted, like being dressed well and being dressed. I always say to people who work, dress for the job that you want. So even if you are a runner or an intern and then you become a researcher or a producer, actually, if you always wear your flip-flops and cargo pants and stuff to work, you probably aren't going to make the exec editor position. Do you know what I mean? Dress for the position you want. Look at the people who are in those positions and make sure you're well groomed. I don't want to see my team come in, represent me and the London 360 News show, go out and interview MPs, politicians, superstars, looking like a mess. If they're representing me and my brand, they need to look very sharp, they need to look professional, they need to be punctual, they need to be polite and well-mannered. You'd be surprised, as you said, a lot of people expect themselves to have all the glory. You know, some of my reporters, when they first come to me, they think it's about getting their face on air, getting their name online, interviewing fabulous people, but actually the remit of the job is you were supposed to put this story up within 24 hours, you're supposed to get that story in, you haven't done that, and that's not professional. Does anyone else have any professional tips? What does professional
Just
mean
carry
to you?
yourself in a way that you just communicate really well.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just got to carry yourself, you know. I'm quite a shy person really. But I am. But you just have to carry yourself because people just won't take you seriously.
And I've got
They
to say,
really won't.
yeah, and
She's like-
where I come from, I think, you know, I come from New Cross, and the part where I come from New Cross is the hood. It's not the, like.
I'm from Hackney.
We got no, we got no milk, we got no post, you know, and that's the sort of area it is. But the bottom line is, it is a mindset. You know, so if you go in with a certain attitude or whatever,
You know, you want people to say, she was a nice girl. What was her name again? That's what you want, not like, God, she had such an attitude. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having a bit of swagger, being a bit of a diva, as long as you actually deliver what your remit is. So, you know, when people first come into my office and we employ them, if they are always hair, makeup, lippy, heels, being a bit zhuzhy, I kind of smile, but as long as they deliver, it doesn't matter. It's the ones that are doing all that and then not delivering and just there for, you know, I'm at a professional media company. That's who you're going to get irritated with. So understand it's fine to be proud of how you look, how you walk, how you behave, but make sure you're delivering what your boss wants. Don't ever undermine your boss. Make sure your boss can trust you. We're going to open up the floor now to questions because we don't have much time. So how do we do this? Questions, hands up, and I will just go around the room. Don't be shy because I know you have some. Yeah, introduce yourself, tell us what area of the industry you're in, and if your question is for anyone in particular.
My name is Tanisha Taylor.
Speak up. Can you guys hear her?
no.
I'm not very good.
That's right.
Okay. My name is Tanisha Taker. I'm a film and television producer by profession. I've done quite a few stuff. Like I'm the production manager on Kings and Queens of Lovers Rock. I think you worked with Fanta Georgiouzi. She brought you Jason Lewis, which I produced the Black Boys remix for. Like quite a few things I've done for quite a few of you guys, and I've never met you. Exactly, which is the key to the question. I'm sure quite a lot of young people, quite a lot of us, have done a lot of projects for people who are, which have ended up, like things after quite a few things I've done have ended up in the cinemas and at film festivals around the world. But then there is always, I think Dumi, your name is?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is always that barrier when you get to the point when you don't quite know how to get to the next level, but you don't, you know. So a couple of years ago I kind of got to that, and now I teach and I'm head of film for Kids Company, which is a charity. But I would love to go back into that, and it's like I'm now going back in and doing all those things. But I just think I was just kind of wanting to kind of ask a question that would allow, or just ask if you guys could give some sort of like general advice on how to get past when you get to that block. You know, like the glass ceiling that you talk about.
Where would you like to work?
That's the thing. See,
That's
once
the-
you don't know what the other
that's
roles
the
are,
thing,
do you
though.
remember when one of you was saying there's all these other roles behind?
Yeah.
And obviously I know a lot of roles. I went to film school like back when.
But
8
you've
years
got to
ago.
start with what do you want to do first, and then we can help you
No,
nurture.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm cool. Like, I went into education
Yeah.
and now I'm going back in. But I think that is one thing that stops a lot of people, because obviously I was lucky enough to get to be like able to get a good job because I'd done things that were quite good. You know, like, but not everyone can. Sometimes there's lots of young people who do work on smaller productions and smaller budgets and smaller projects that do lift off, as with the Jason Lewis, as with the Kings and Queens of Love and Drop. But then they don't have the access like perhaps I perhaps did, because I was headhunted for Kids Company, which is the difference.
So
To
are you
move on to
saying
something
what
else.
we've said already about everyone needs to know the structure, and I guess most people
Yeah,
have
it's
said
like
you
where
need
the
to
points
start
to
at
go
the
to
bottom.
find.
All of us started at the bottom.
Yeah.
Work experience, internships, that's where you start in this industry. Unfortunately, as everyone said, it's so competitive and so popular. It's not like the days when you could actually go in and slot into a researcher job or something. Everyone wants these jobs. All of us started at the bottom. I was a runner. Did you guys start at the bottom?
I did.
Yeah, exactly. Does that make sense? If you start at the bottom, while you're photocopying and helping people get their scripts together, etc., you're observing, you're kind of sponge, you're soaking everything in.
Well, what I was kind of asking is more if each person could give a more direct reference for their area and the place where someone should go. So, for example, myself, now I work in education. If someone said, you know, I want to be a teacher, but I didn't get to do my PGC, I may say, look into this in a particular direction. Because I'm sure we've got a lot of information that's really, really helpful, but I'm just sure that there will be a lot of
So what would
people
your
who might-
question for
Yeah,
them
perhaps
be?
like maybe now that you know more and you're not about Google anymore, for someone who would also like to give music an art, do artist management, perhaps you could give a direct reference point for where they can learn about that kind of thing if they haven't studied it, or maybe are we getting?
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying.
So like.
Yeah, no, you're not. It's not confusing. What you're okay.
There are so many different parts
Yeah, there's
into
certain
every
parts of
industry,
it
and all
which-
of us have made it in a different way.
Yeah.
And you know, one music manager won't make it in the same way as another one.
But maybe
Well.
just a good recommendation. I don't know.
No, what I'd say, because even like when I was down at Nike in Portland, and when I was in Nike, I was like, there's so many kids in London here that probably have grown up on trainers and like sport, or they played football, played rugby, played basketball, but then they just cut off and they don't want to do anything else. But no one looks into like, media behind the marketing behind like trainers and designing trainers or things like that. Do you get what I mean? So like, there's in every creative field or in any field you want to do, there's in anything. If you look at a video, every part of that video, there's a role that has put together that video in every individual point. Even down to like music management. It's a bit okay. You your parents want you to be a lawyer, but you like music. Try to be an entertainment lawyer. Do you get what I mean? Like in any profession, there's even accountancy. Become an entertainment accountant. Do you get what I mean? So there's different realms where you can be a professional, but like specifically catering for that industry. Do you get what I mean? So I'll just say, just forensically look at industries and think, like, where can I tap into, like what? Just you have to engross yourself in that industry so you can properly like know every single point, like just not unbold. You just want to just be in there. That's what I would just say. That's all you can do.
Would it help if we made a chart and Sonia just doing it? No, I'm serious, because I'm thinking, here's the thing. Whether it's TV or radio, you get the bottom run of runners and interns. You get researchers, you get assistant producers, you get producers. You get executive producers and senior producers. You get the head editors if you're in a news department, or you get the head of programming if you're in radio. Around those creative people for editorial, you get marketing departments, press departments, acquisitions departments, which basically acquire content and bring it into this channel. You have lawyers, you have the finance departments, you have HR, and they are all round the circle. So, I mean, if Sonia wants, we can make a chart up, and maybe you guys can just access it online. Yeah. One for radio, one for TV.
That would be good.
Yeah? All right, other questions? Let's move on.
Sorted.
With reference to the way the industry's changed, so obviously there's now online TV channels like SBTV, Graham Daily, Link Up TV, and so on and so forth. How has that impacted the industry and sort of like the access of opportunities for young people who want to go into it? Because I see a lot of young people now have maybe not necessarily been disheartened, but feel that setting up their own TV channel online is a better route. I just wanted you to shed some light on whether, basically what you thought about that and how those young people can get their exposure through starting up their own enterprises.
So, sorry, I'm gonna leave, so I may as well just say basically, this is it. I definitely feel that's like, in this game, it's survival. In the world, it's survival of the fittest. Like if you see the industry as a door, there's only a certain amount of people that are gonna go through that door. So it's the people that are gonna have definitely majority of the time when people do go through. So I say it to a lot of people: if you're gonna do this, you have to be the hardest working. Like, let's say you was an aspiring manager, you have to be the hardest working manager. So just don't sleep, just work every day, do something to move yourself forward. And hopefully, as they say, I know like when you're younger, people say hard work pays off, or what you put in is what you get out. You hear all these sayings, but it's the truth. At the end of the day, like, see with all these, okay, someone would see SB and be like, wow, look what he's done, and they'll think, you know what, I can't, it's already been done, I won't be able to do it. But if you do something else and you work a bit harder, or you just change it up a little bit, you're gonna have your opportunity. So that's the thing. So when people like say, I don't have the opportunity, or I can't do it, you just have to do it yourself and just work as hard as you can. Just don't give up. You're not always gonna make it, but
Yeah,
Sometimes
I think Jamal was, he spotted an opportunity, and just like with a lot of people here, there'll be various opportunities that you can spot. And if you know your audience, if you know your community that you want to service, and he definitely knew what he wanted to do, he's now taken over, and he's now, he did a 2-page spread in the Evening Standard yesterday. It doesn't mean that none of you can't do that. It just means that you've got to look for the right community or the right opportunity to go and put that forward. You can have your own radio station, you can have your own television station, you can build up, and it's a way of learning the business. And then if you then want to migrate and go into terrestrial channels or work abroad or whatever, you can do all of that. It's a learning experience for everybody. But what you don't think is that because that person's done it, I can't do it anymore. That's the wrong attitude to have. And I think if you've got that, then you shouldn't really be in the industry, because this is kind of what the industry is all about. Do you know what I mean? And this is not me disrespecting Jamal. There'd be another Jamal. The person could be female. Thank you, exactly. And I think we don't probably know about them, but they're out there doing their thing, and their time will come when we know all about them. But they're bringing the new artists through as well.
That's important is he had 2 big elements that helped him break. One was he saw the gap in the market that I talked about, which was the F64s. As soon as they started buzzing and everyone was doing them, whether they were underground artists or bigger established artists, that was what people went online to have a look at. And then the second thing, and I would say this is a really important thing for everyone, I live by this, is have the strongest team around you, because Jamal didn't make SBTV what it is without the team with him. The guys who approached him to do that website, there have been a few different sets of guys, but they have seen in Jamal a front piece, and then they have taken it further by creating an amazing site that has bells and whistles and everything on it. So have the best team around you. If you're a great artist, no one will ever see you if your manager isn't rolling with you all the time, if your publicity person isn't presenting you in the right way. Your team has to be really strong. And if you've got someone weak in your team and they're just in it because they're your best friend or your family member, that person will pull your team down to a level where it will never be established. And at some point it'll get ugly and they'll go anyway. So pull around you the strongest network of people you have. Because if your strongest people are in your team, how can you lose?
Yeah, but you have to obviously have his work ethic. He can't. The kid, he was.
Oh yeah, he's absolutely a grafter. There's no denying that.
And to grind, when you grind like that, people are going to be attracted to you to help you. You can't think that you can get the best team around you. Best people are only going to be around you if you are the best at that time. They can see something in you. So he used to bug my phone, or he's on it, like he was on it, big time. So I give him much ratings to that guy, and I hope it inspires all you guys, whoever's trying to do TV program. He really went for it.
I think in anything you do in this business, if you like, in the media business, the one thing you got to remember is don't sleep.
Don't sleep.
Do not sleep.
It's true.
It's true. You've got to sleep a little bit.
I'm just lucky.
Sorry. I work night shifts all the time.
Right. If you sleep, you're going to miss out. You are going to miss out. You mustn't sleep. If your friend's doing this and blah blah blah, just concentrate on what you're doing. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing. Do you know what I mean? Just concentrate on what you're doing. Because that's the thing that's most important. If you turn around and study 10 things at once, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I just want to add that ideas is the currency that people seem to be missing here as well. You've got ideas, you've got to put those ideas into practice. You can learn to say, go online, do what you got. Ideas is so key now when it comes to formats, bringing things to people. If you haven't got the ideas, then obviously you're going to be at a certain disadvantage. But if you've got the ideas, you're definitely at an advantage. And you have to, if you've got those ideas and you're that creative, then forward.
One last thing I was going to say is, I'm just saying, with someone like Tiny, if you look at the transgressions, I always use that the benchmark, pass out. He did pass out, then he bought out the next record, then he bought the next. At every record, you didn't know where it was coming from. So the team, Tiny and the team, right, they always changed the face of what they were doing. So it was never one type of music. A lot of people sit back and think, oh, I'm just going to do this and ride and crest away. He never stopped, and he didn't sleep either. I swear. It's what it is.
It's just a quick one. Does anyone have, or can everyone say, what their mantra is or their ethos, just something that they live by in life?
Be optimistic is mine.
I'm a firm believer in karma. You do good and it'll come
That's
back to you.
very true. Yeah.
And you really need it in this business. Do good and it'll come back to you.
I try not to make enemies. That's what I try. I always say when I'm a producer, I make a friend every day. I always say that when I'm on shift. It sounds so corny, but I always say that because people. Because when I book guests, sometimes like for the London Rights recently, I'm very new to this, to Robin. For the London Rights, I've got an ordinary mum from South London and a teenage son, and she came on the programme. She was just talking as a mum, trying to keep him indoors, that sort of thing. And it's when you befriend people within the field through the phone, they kind of think they're your friend. And when she came, she was eloquent, she was fluent, she was so happy. So I think you've got to try not to make enemies, because you'll be surprised. Like, I used to work at One Extra, and he was the head of choice. I was like, oh! And a lot of people you meet on your travel, it's good to have a good rapport with people, and don't make enemies, because they come back to bite you. And you're going to be somewhere, and Robin might be your boss. You could have crossed paths with him years ago when you were like photocopying in his office at ITN. And you'd be surprised. It's a really weird thing. The industry, as big as it is, it's actually quite small. It's just quite. That's my little mantra. Just be kind. Obviously, I'm not much of a hack anyway, but be kind. Yeah.
The same. Just be insanely optimistic, and it's like, I think the industry sees it, everyone sees that friendly, and it's all like, it's love. The reason why it's like that is probably the reason why everyone's talking about being optimistic, and it's all about being nice and positive energies, because at the end of the day, it's like everyone's come from a passion, and you've got a common interest. So when you have a passion for something, there's a love for it. Some people's love is lost because of failure, or sometimes things haven't gone all the way, but generally there's a good ambience in the industry, because everybody it's good energy. So basically it's being optimistic and just good spirit, and just be nice to people.
Okay, I've got two. One is I will not lose. I never lose. I don't. Even if I lose, I don't lose. Mentally, that's what keeps me going. Right, and say please and thank you. That's it.
And mine would be always go for your highest ambition and plan, and only resort to plan B if that one doesn't work. Last one.
Hi, my name's Jackie. I work in music, kind of branding, and I do journalism as well. I just wanted to know, what was some of you guys' biggest challenges, and how did you overcome them?
Biggest challenges.
Mine was when I first started actually in TV companies. There weren't many people who looked like me, that were ethnic, that were female, and everyone that I did meet, because I started as a runner and straight went into a presenter, and everyone that interviewed me would say, oh poor you, being an ethnic female must be really hard, I mean what's it like, and you must have had a real struggle. And I used to say, being an ethnic female has been the biggest asset of my career. Everywhere I started, everyone I interviewed, talk to me in a more on-camera friendly way than they would have my maybe older white male counterpart. So it's always been a real benefit for me, a real positive thing.
For me, career-wise, being managing director of Choice, it was making sure that people took the station seriously. You had a team that were professional, and they had a professional ethos. And I suppose as a black person, being one of the most senior people at the time in that business, they recognised that that glass ceiling was broken. You can run a radio station. I could have run Capital. I could have run whatever. I ran an urban brand in inverted commas, but the people working with me, the team working with me, all had that common goal to get the highest audience figures, to get the highest the ratings and the share. And we celebrated when we got it, and when we didn't get it, we huddled round and we went out there again. So that was one of the big challenges for me.
There was a time, my show at that time was based in the Heart FM building, and we shared a studio with Jono, who was a Heart FM presenter. And our show used to be on a Sunday night at one point at 12, finish at 12 o'clock in the morning. And we actually got complaints that we used to leave cups out in the studio. So finally we used to clean them up. And then we got another one a couple of weeks later that we used to leave the place messy or whatever. We didn't do that. And in the end, it was, I'm not saying it's racial, but they didn't want us in the environment. And that was the hardest thing for me to actually bite my teeth, grind my teeth and take on. you're going to get a lot of knockbacks.
Yeah.
Right,
I think
you
that's
get a
it,
lot,
yeah.
like proper knockbacks where you would kill that person. Right? No, you do, you feel like that. And because you're like, they can't do it to me. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I've done? It doesn't matter. All right? And it's not a white thing. It's not, believe me, I've worked in Ivor's company, Choice, and I saw the same things there. You're going to get that. It may be in a different way, but you're going to get that. And just be very ready for it. And just hold your ground and not freak out. That's the best advice I'd give to you guys. Just don't lose it.
Oh, okay, very quickly, I'd say don't be overawed and really nice. So you work with a lot of very forceful characters, very bright people, but stick to your instincts. And if you think something is right, stick to that, because often your first judgment on a story or a bit of video is the right one, and you might think, oh, they know better than me. Often they don't.
A lot of people have a lot of bravado in the industry and talk so confident and really loud. But when you listen to Kevin, what they're saying, absolute nonsense, but it's just the way they deliver it. You think, wow, this is absolute rubbish. It's just the way they deliver it. It's just really, like in meetings, they'll sell a story, so you think, that's really rubbish. But everyone's like, yeah, that's really good. It's like, no, it's not. It's just the way that they, isn't that true? It's just the way they sell it, so, you know. Don't be intimidated by people that went to Oxford or Cambridge, because I never went there, but you know. It's really, it's such a, the whole class thing as well. I'm working class, and when you go and invite with people who did go to Oxford or Cambridge, just by the way they speak, you think, oh my God, they're so clever. Not necessarily. They may not have simple common sense and stuff, they may not be new savvy, so that's how you can sell yourself in a different kind of way.
And finally, to finish off, just know that you guys have opportunities that we never had, and it's easier and in a way harder than ever. So make use of the emails. You don't have to write letters. We had to write letters and post them and put stamps on them. That's what we had to wait for. Do you know what I mean? We never had panels like this that told us about how to get into the industry, what job structures and etc. there were. So please, you know, take faith in the fact that you're going somewhere. It's a really exciting time for you. You've heard from all our panellists tonight. Please join me in thanking them. That you fill in your evaluation forms that you all have, so please don't let her down, please get those done, and thank you everyone for coming.
Hang on guys, I don't have anything to say, but these events are really hard to put together, but what we do need to do is say thank you to Sonia. She's done all the hard work.
Found this evening really useful. I would really appreciate your feedback. This is the only way that we know we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And I hope that some of the questions that you may have wanted to ask have been answered today, and I hope that what has been relayed today has been really useful for you in terms of, you know, just knowledge, having insight, and being able to understand what it takes to work and survive within this industry. We are a voluntary organisation, and we do this again. I just want to reiterate this because we want to. So the only way we again know how well we're doing is by you either tweeting or following us on Facebook, or by keeping in touch with us and letting us know what you're doing. Although everybody on the panel is really useful for you to know, everybody within this room is as well. So it's worth you having a word with everybody, or as many people as you can, by just asking who they are, because you'd be quite surprised that you've got your photographer, graphic designer, web designer, producer, whoever you need right here in this room. So don't be afraid to approach them. It takes a lot to get everybody here, but it also takes a lot for you to believe in us, because it takes your belief in us to come along, and your time is just as precious. So I really appreciate you all being here today, and I really appreciate the fact that you see the worth in Inspirational You, but also in our panel. So really thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm sorry if you haven't been able to ask the questions that you would like, but you know, if you send us an email or you contact the panelists, we're quite happy to forward that on as well, because we are over time. So yeah, I do apologise, but I hope that it's been really useful. Can I just get a show of hands if this has been useful for you?
Has or hasn't?
Has.
Oh yeah.
So thank you again. I hope you have a really safe journey home. Do keep us, do add yourself to our mailing list. You can do that via Facebook. So you can just look up Inspirational You, you can add yourselves via that, and then you can find out when our next event, which will be the 29th of October. I do also co-run another organisation which is called The First Lady, which is something similar to this, but it focuses more on the creative industry. So you may do jewellery, maybe fashion, maybe creams, soap, and things like that. So do look out for that, and our fair is on the 18th of December, and we're having a meet-up which will be like an informal meet-up, so just like all of you here, without a panel, just coming together and being able to network and talk, and that's on the 29th of September. So if you look up the First Lady London on Twitter, you can hopefully meet myself and Tammy, who I think just dashed off, and find out a little bit more about that. But thank you again, and safe journey. Please do the vaccination forms.
So I didn't get a form.
No problem.